Welcome to the Inspiring Coaches Show, the podcast devoted to inspiring coaches to bring their professional dreams to life by revealing the knowledge, insights, and best practices of other inspiring coaches. I'm your host, Jen Anderson, PCC, early settler of the coaching industry, lover of all things coaching, and what coaching is doing to make the world a better place. Well, hello. We always start the show with a celebration because I love to start every coaching session that I have with a client with a celebration. I found that it's a bit of a surprise sometimes to my clients because most people walk around in the world kind of thinking about what there isn't to celebrate in their lives, and this immediately shifts them. And I think that's great because that's kind of the point of coaching, is to create an instant shift in people. So I'm going to celebrate with Coach Laray. We're all going to celebrate with Coach Laray this week. She sent me a quick celebration that says, I'm celebrating that I'm enjoying new and interesting coaching opportunities this month. So a little bit of mystery there about what these new coaching opportunities are. But I do think it points to the possibility that enjoyment could actually be a standard that we all hold for the coaching that we're doing in the world. And so I invite each of you to think about possibly setting that as your standard. So yay, Laray, woohoo. Miriam, you can cheer with me if you want. Woohoo. Well, today I am really excited to be welcoming Coach Miriam Cheuk. It's Cheuk, right? Your pronunciation. Okay. When I first met with Miriam, and I told her this earlier, I was just enchanted with her personality, first of all. But also her holistic approach to coaching. As we were talking, that really started showing up more and more in our conversation. So we're going to be digging into what's behind Miriam's vision of empowerment coaching. And to get you thinking along these lines, Miriam's provided an inspiring quote. Transformative coaching is clarity, action, and empowerment for happiness and success. So while you're pondering that bit of wisdom from Miriam, we're going to take a quick break to hear from the team at Coaching Out of the Box. And we'll be back after this message.
On behalf of all of us here at the International Coaching Group, also known as Coaching Out of the Box, we thank you for joining us today. And we hope that you're enjoying this podcast. If you're ready to turn your coaching dreams into a reality, please reach out to one of our enrollment coaches and ask about our Fast Track to ICF credential, or perhaps our 555 Coaching Skills Training Program. On behalf of all of us here, we would welcome the opportunity to support your coaching education journey from beginning to certification and beyond. Thank you.
All right, welcome back. So today we're exploring how coaches can unlock their clients' potential and create transformation through empowerment. And our inspiring guest, Miriam Cheuk, is the founder of Empowerment Coaching MC, LLC. With extensive experience as both an internal and external coach, she specializes in leadership and executive coaching. Miriam has attained the highest level of accreditation, and I hear she did that in record speed, by the way. Maybe I'll ask about that in just a minute, with the International Coaching Federation as a master certified coach. And Miriam's passion lies in making a positive impact in the world through the power of coaching. So welcome, Miriam.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today with you and with our audience that will be listening later on.
Yes, well, I was so pleased when you said that you would come on the show because you came highly recommended as someone to have an inspiring conversation with. And so thank you for being willing to do this.
Thank you. No pressure now.
No pressure. So I told you I had kind of a lofty question that I was going to start off our conversation with. And so here it is. It is, Miriam, when you look at the world we're living in today, what about it makes the concept of empowerment such an important one for you to champion?
Definitely each conversation is the possibility and the opportunity to build relationships and to help people And when I say helping people means to me that you're really seeing them, that you are fully present for them, that you value who they are as people, and you give them the possibility to have autonomy to make their own decisions. I think having a sounding board or a thinking partner, that's what coaching is all about. It's really transformative. I've had plenty of situations where I've had people telling me, it meant so much, the conversation that we had. It really had a lasting effect on me. And sometimes we don't realize that just embodying a coaching mindset and being fully present for that individual and holding the space, it's what people just need to feel seen, heard, and valued.
Mm-hmm. There's a coach out there in the world. His name is Michael Neal, super coach. Have you read any of his books by any chance?
No.
Oh, okay. So I know he had a show, a call-in radio show with Hay House Radio. So he was one of their authors, but he has this whole lamppost theory. He says that even if people at the end of their day went and talked to a lamppost, they would get value from it. So his whole idea was if people could get value just pouring out their heart to a lamppost, imagine what the value is that they get from pouring out their heart to someone who is listening, truly listening, someone who cares.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And actually, now that you mentioned that, it does remind me there was an initiative in Europe that they called the listening bench, where you would have a person sitting there and different people strangers would come and sit. And the goal was for them to talk about whatever they wanted to talk. And that individual was there just to listen to them. And it was transformative in the sense that you had a lot of people that felt very isolated, very lonely, and they had that space where it was totally pro bono. And there were two strangers meeting heart to heart and mind to mind. And it was a beautiful exchange. And I do believe that conversations equal relationships, in the sense that the quality of a conversation equals the quality of a relationship. And even beginning, like, I think sometimes just the way you interact with people, the way you make them feel, can really make them realize, wow, I mean, I feel so good. I mean, what a lovely person. Just like a smallest acts of kindness, and listening is one of them, can really make a difference for people. And I think people sometimes undermine, again, they don't realize the power of that. I think often, different generations, like at times, some people feel really lonely. They don't have a lot of family members. Like, even I'm thinking through the pandemic, how difficult it was for certain people if they lived alone and they didn't have anybody to really communicate with, but then they had the possibility of virtual conferencing, right? Or even talking on the phone, and how at least that connected you with someone. So I guess all that to say that we should never undermine like what it does to other people, just to smile, just to ask them a question, to be fully present, to listen. I think it does have, and it's empowering. And I do think it can make a very positive impact on people.
Yeah, I agree. You reminded me of, that whole sense of isolation and just being able to connect with someone. We went through this pandemic that created the shutdown, and people were suddenly overnight alone, a lot of them, right? And isolated. The world of coaching and coach training in particular kind of exploded during that time. And I'm making a connection between what you're saying and how that could have, impacted it, was this need to really connect and feel empowered in a time when people, I think, were probably feeling incredibly disempowered.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can be surrounded by people and still feel lonely.
Yeah. Good point.
So I think it has to do also, I think students that go through the coaching program with Coaching Out of the Box, I think that sometimes we emphasize the fact that it starts, like, part of the practicing of the skills and knowledge that you're attaining, it starts in your personal life as well. Mm-hmm. What are you doing when your children are talking to you? Do you stop doing, even though you're very busy with maybe cooking and getting things ready for bedtime? Are you stopping and listening to the kids? Or even when your husband talks to you, are you stopping and looking in the eye and smiling and, kind of making them feel like they're the most important person in the room right now? And what they have to say is extremely important. So I think a lot of times people don't realize that it starts with self, right? It starts with self-awareness, how we're showing up for others. And that really makes a difference in that connection and rapport that you build with people around you.
Yeah. And you talked about coaching presence earlier, maintaining presence, one of our competencies, and how, and I think everything you just said feeds beautifully into that concept of who are you being? So a lamppost can't be anything for somebody to pour their heart out to, right? It's just an inanimate object. But we as coaches bring so much, and it's who we are and how we are and our values and our integrity and all these different facets that make it so incredibly empowering to talk to us. Yeah, I'm really seeing it. So I want to tie this into a sense too of your executive and leadership coaching that you're doing. And I remember years ago, I had a very I'm going to say powerful, somebody who was coaching at a high level and making a lot of money to do it. And he was coaching CEOs of Fortune 500. And the question he got asked was, what's the biggest benefit they derive from coaching with you? And he said, they can tell me anything and they know there's no ramifications. I'm not going to hear something they say and think I need to go do something about it. I have no skin in the game. So they find it really empowering to know that for 1 hour a week or a couple of times a month, there's somebody they can absolutely trust and they're empowered by it.
I mean, the leader definitely makes a difference in our organization. I always say that is not what you say in terms of the culture and the climate that you want, is what you're modeling for others. So it starts with the leader. And I think it's very important for the leader to reflect. And part of the reflective process of coaching is asking questions on how are you feeling that you're being perceived? What is the data? What is the evidence? What are some behaviors that you might want to shift? And obviously those behaviors have to do with how you see yourself, right? In terms of beliefs, values, assumptions you might have, biases that everybody has, etc. So I think it's important work that people have to do to self-analyze. And also that's why I think sometimes doing that reflection in conjunction with some kind of a reflection or assessment that maybe other people have provided feedback to the leader, I think it's very important, because sometimes how people see themselves is not congruent with the way other people perceive them as their leadership style. So it's important to have that self-awareness. And I also feel like the higher you go in the organization, the more isolated it can be.
Right.
So you do need a safe space, where it's confidential, that they're able to challenge you, right? And they're able to stretch you. So it's not only going to be, it's going to be acknowledgement, it's going to be celebration, it's going to be recognition, but also it's going to be, okay, let's talk about what the challenge is and what are some initial steps that might be necessary to do to attain the goals. And that always has to do with an exploration that I call of the deep structure. So it's not only the surface, and the deep structure has to do is similar to the iceberg in the sense that is what you see is the behaviors, right? And the actions.
That's
but
what's
really
above the surface on the left.
Exactly. But the deep structure has to do with like the emotions, like what are you really thinking, right? That is driving these decisions and these actions. It has to do with the values, the beliefs, the assumptions, the goals that you might have. So all that is the deep structure, which has to do with what is under the surface. And I think that's important to name, because you can't name it without, you can't tame it without naming it. So a lot of times you have to have the hard conversations and notice if it is congruent with what you're saying. This is what you're saying, and these are your actions. Are they incongruent? And if they're not congruent, then what might you need to do to change that? And it's going back to the doing and the being, right? What are you doing? Is that who you want to be and how you want to lead? And a lot of people get into leadership because they either were inspired or they were not inspired and they wanted to make a difference. But it is a constant act of reflection and metacognition to know, are we adapting to the uniqueness of our employees as well? You can have the vision and mission, but how equipped are you for those social interactions and to communicate effectively in a way that sometimes you have to deliver difficult messages, but are you doing it in a way that it lands positively with people?
So what has been most surprising to you as a coach in this, because it's embedded in the name of your business, empowerment, right? What do you think has been most surprising to you about what you've been doing as a coach when it comes to this concept of empowerment?
Well, I think it's aligned with what I already know. Like David Rock's research talks about the scarf and the needs of the brain. And part of it has to do with the scarf represents the S for status, the C for certainty, the A for autonomy, the R for relatedness, and the F for fairness. So when you're leading or when you're interacting with other people, you have to have emotional intelligence and you have to understand the needs of people. People have needs as human beings, right?
Mm.
And that's one of the reasons why it's important to see them as people, not just employees, and how well they're performing, right? You have to get curious. Hey, what's happening? I've noticed a change in terms of the demeanor or some of the habits. How can I support you? What would you like to tell me about it? So it's important to have that kind of open communication with your employees to make sure that they can truly tell you what they need from you, the resources, the support, anything that they might need. Because at the end of the day, if you're leading in a way that you take the coach approach, I mean, clearly certain things, you have to make decisions, right? And it might not be as collaborative as everybody wants, but for the most part, you could have a very collaborative environment where people feel empowered. Because I always say, you hire good people, let them make their own, let them have autonomy to make their own decisions. Because if you micromanage, it's not going to feel good for anyone. Right? You hire talented people, let them be, right? You've given them the goals, let them figure out the strategy to get there. Unless they need hand-holding for whatever reason, maybe they're new, maybe it makes them feel more comfortable, then really adjust the uniqueness of your employees to ensure that you get the best out of them. So most people will work really hard for somebody that they admire, and that they know that the person cares for them, for their well-being as a person, not only because of their performance. And I think sometimes people miss that. They don't realize that the better relationships you have with the people around you, whether it's in a leadership position or whether it's in your personal life, the better it is in terms of satisfaction, in terms of happiness, in terms of success. That it can be measured by goals, or it can be measured by just the atmosphere itself, right? The conflict, if there is conflict, there's going to be productive conflict because there are norms of collaboration. There are ways to engage that will still respect, that there'll be a respect for each other. So I always say, because I do a lot of also team coaching where I collaborate with organizations where they want their teams to evolve and become stronger. And I always say it is very good to have cognitive dissonance. I mean, like a conflict in terms of how people's perspective, because you want to have variances of opinions. You want to have a diversity of employees that see things for innovation to happen. Now, the way that people express themselves, right, in a meeting. So if you were to use paraphrasing before you put your idea, that would likely help the other person on the other side. And I think it's very interesting because sometimes even when I've watched interactions and then I make recommendations, so I train them on, okay, well, now let's do the same thing, but now let's incorporate some coaching tools, right? We could be listen actively, right? Not just with intent to reply, paraphrase first before you even want to put your idea on the table. When you do some of the basic things, so pause and ask a question, right? That might advance the conversation. When you do any of the coaching skills that are just the minimum, it really enhances relationships, because then I might not feel threatened to listen to your idea because you've respected me and listened to my idea. And then maybe I might even realize your idea is better now. Or I might get a better idea saying, you know what, I love Jen's idea, and can I add another piece to it? And so that's how innovation and creativity happens.
Yes. And I heard a really important word in there, at least one that I key in on, which was respect. Respect is such an empowering way of being. Respectful. Sometimes I think if we could all just walk around and respect each other just a little bit more, we'd have collaboration, we'd have that creativity, it would just automatically flow. And what I particularly appreciate about you, Miriam, you are like finding the way to put it into something practical. How does somebody do it? Well, it's an it's I hear Jen's idea and I'd like to add this to it, right? So just those little nuggets I think are really helpful, especially for our listeners, who are coaches who are looking to incorporate more ways of being empowering in their coaching, right? So thank you for that. I just really enjoyed hearing just that little snippet. So in terms of your coaching, Miriam, what's next for you? Like, what's your next stretch?
Well, I'm an avid learner. So what is not? It would be the big question, because I'm constantly learning. People are always confused, like, wait, another degree, another program? Like, we didn't just finish. And so, okay, I will give a little bit of background. So I hold right now the MCC, and I did have like a really fast track to the MCC that normally surprises people.
Yeah, tell everybody, because I want them to be inspired to know you can do this.
Absolutely. And part of what helped me is I was already in an internal coaching position, but I didn't need the credential. But I felt that for my own integrity, and really I wanted to expand my knowledge, my skills, and my disposition, I figured the best way is to be in integrity with what I feel is important, even though the organization doesn't require it. I want to go through the accreditation. So once I had that goal, I went through ACC in a year and I got it. And then the following year I went for PCC. And then two years after, I went for my MCC and passed it on the first. And I always tell people it was a journey, meaning like I was already coaching and I had already done a lot of work on myself in terms of how I needed to show up for my clients. And so I think through the process of ACC, PCC, and MCC, I did a lot of unlearning and relearning. Just because sometimes, it's interesting. It changes the dynamic between ACC, where, it's more robotic, or you're more concerned about the performance, and then PCC and MCC is more masterful in the sense that it flows, that you let go of your own ego, you're just fully present, you're in service of that person, and you're still the same person, but I think you are more equipped because you've had obviously more coaching hours. 2,500 to be exact. Yes. And more confidence. And you've had a lot of feedback from a lot of clients. And that's something that I would definitely recommend people doing. I think the best feedback comes from clients. So a lot of times you have to ask them what worked well, what didn't, how can I best support you? How can I adapt to your own uniqueness? Because you can't have the same approach with each individual. Each individual is the unique self. And so you have to know how they learn, how they process best. And how you can best support them. So those are questions to ask. Of course, working with a mentor coach assists as well, or a supervisor, a mentor supervisor helps as well. But I think at the end of the day is just taking the time to really reflect and recording a lot of the coaching sessions, reflecting on them and figuring out, okay, knowing the competencies, knowing how you want to show up for people, just doing your own reflection as well and realizing, okay, well, here are some of the opportunities or the growing ages, or here is something that I want to continue, kind of like traffic light. This is the green thing that I want to continue doing. This is what next time I need to make sure that I'm more mindful and proceed with caution, and things that maybe is like, okay, it's a no with this individual, because clearly that doesn't assist that I don't mediate his thinking or her thinking doing X, Y, and Z, right? So I always think that because you're always in that dance with the client, in our intention is to really always be raising the blinds. I always think that when you come into a coaching session, people come either because they want to plan a conversation, they want to reflect on something, or maybe they have a challenge or a problem to solve. So I find that part of that intention that as a coach is to serve them in the best of your ability. And a lot of times it's just opening the blinds, right? Whether it's, evoking that awareness, that is one of the competencies, and how we do it, it should be a masterful way, in the sense that it's not always going to be the same way. It's not scripted. So I always say it's going to look, every coaching conversation is going to look different, even from coach to coach, or even yourself with one client versus another client. And I think that's the beauty of it. You're adapting to the needs of the client, and that is your role.
Oh, what I'm hearing too, embedded in what you're sharing there, is self-empowerment. I heard you encouraging coaches to empower themselves as coaches through reflection.
Yeah. And I feel like you have to be the first one to believe in yourself, in your abilities, in your talents, and be able to dust yourself off if you fail forward or something didn't go as expected in terms of a coaching conversation, just to reflect on that and say, you know what, tomorrow's going to be a better day. And you know what, I'm going to learn, and, I'm going to do better. And so that's the process as well. There's no perfection. I think the beauty of coaching conversations, you have to have a lot of cognitive agility, which that's what I love. I love like the ping pong kind of thing, where there's no script and you just have to be fully present in the moment. And And, a lot of times I don't even know what I'm going to say until like it's time to say something. And I think that's how in depth, like how much I get into the conversations. My focus is on my client and what they're saying, and just kind of absorbing not only the verbal, but mostly the non-verbal, in the energy shift. I'm very big on energy. I think part of the most successful coaching conversations is when you notice those energy shifts, and you also, you're curious about it. Hey, I noticed that, when you say this, you smiled a little bit. What was that about? So sometimes that curiosity leading with like I'm a warm demander, in the sense that I in my coaching conversations, people say, you are very direct. Like I try to be very succinct in my communication, but always there's such warmth and supportive nature, where people feel like very, very quickly, they feel very open and able to be vulnerable, because they know there's no judgment. There's a judgment-free zone. And I think it has to do with how you show up for people, right? Just be there fully in their presence, and just trying to do the best that you can be for them, and see how you can best support them. So I guess, yes, self-empowerment. And then as a result, the empowerment of others by giving that autonomy and flexibility and ability to make their own decisions.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm really happy that we had a chance to kind of take a term that's used in coaching, because it's so important, so relevant, so core to what we're doing, but, put a little spotlight on it, right? And pull out some of the things that are unique for you about being someone who empowers others. So I'm really excited that we had a chance to hear your thoughts around this. So if others would want to continue a conversation with you around this, or perhaps talk to you about coaching, what would you like to offer?
Absolutely. They can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm under Miriam Cheuk, so that's easy.
Can you say it again one more time?
Yes, they can find me on LinkedIn. Under my name, Miriam Cheuk. That's fine. They can look Miriam Cheuk. And I'm happy to start a conversation. And, of course, I have different services, from mentor coaching to, just coaching. I'm primarily do executive and leadership coaching, but I'm open to, if they needed any, because here's the thing, even in executive and leadership coaching, it's a whole person approach. Like you just don't talk about professionally, and then everything blends. There's really no true delineation, because a lot of times, if you're having something that is impacting you at a personal level, it will still reflect at the workplace, where you might have less patience, or you might get more frustrated more easily. So it's a fine line both ways. I feel like, even like some people that they don't sleep well, it's noticeable at the workplace. So I think what I'm trying to say is that it's even though we put titles and we say, oh, I do executive or leadership coaching, the reality is there's always the portion of the kind of the life coaching, in the sense that, the personal aspect also comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And just because I know that this is an audio medium, can you spell your last name so they can find you easily on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. So my last name is Cheuk, Cheuk.
There you go. I wanted to make sure they could find you. Okay, well, so we're going to take a quick break here. If you can hang out for just a second longer. But when we come back, I'd like to share some news from the world of coaching with everyone, and also to tell our listeners how they can apply to be a guest on the Inspiring Coaches Show. So we are going to take a quick break now.
Hello. On behalf of all of us here at the International Coaching Group, also known as Coaching Out of the Box, we'd like to thank you for joining us today. We hope you are enjoying the Inspiring Coaches Show. This podcast is just one example of the many resources and tools we offer. If you are looking for an ICF accredited coach educator, look no further. Our signature Fast Track to ICF credential program has been one of the many reasons both individuals and corporations have chosen the International Coaching Group to support their coaching skills training and coaching journeys. Please reach out to an enrollment coach today. It would be our sincere pleasure to support your coaching needs. Thank you.
right. Well, welcome back. And here's a bit of news from the world of coaching. You can visit the ICF Thought Leadership Institute's Global Digital Library to find expert insights about the future of coaching, the future of education, the future of work, and they say so much more. So to learn more, you can visit thoughtleadership.org. And you can apply to be a guest and come and sit and chat with me for a while. So the Inspiring Coaches Show is always looking for inspiring guest coaches. And if you're interested in joining me on the show, please send an email to Jennifer@coachingoutofthebox.com and include your topic idea and a short blurb on how you think it will inspire coaches to bring their professional dreams to life. Well, as we all know, inspiring coaches love to show gratitude. And so, Miriam, thank you so much. I really appreciate you took time out of your busy schedule. It was a commitment. And you're right. You are so warm. It is so easy to connect with you and your smile. I'll tell you, $1 million smile too. So thank you for being a coach in the world and for, weaving the magic that you do and empowering people to be the best version of themselves. It's important work that you're doing. So thank you.
No, thank you so much for the opportunity to be part of the podcast. And I'm looking forward to reconnecting again in the future. And who knows, maybe we need to switch the tables on you and be the one interviewed.
Well, you know what? You mentioned that to me, and I'm going to take you up on that because I have something burning in my heart that I would love a chance to talk about. So we'll be in touch. We'll get in touch about that. So I also want to thank everyone at Coaching Out of the Box. They're our sponsor. They bring this entire show, and I really want to thank everyone that's listening. You're taking time out of your busy schedule as well to get inspired so that you can make a powerful difference in the world as well. So thank you. Thank you. And until next time, I'm Jen Anderson, and this is the Inspiring Coaches Show.